Sophie, an 8-year-old girl, lives in the suburban neighborhood of Maple Grove. Every week, she eagerly waits by the window for the garbage truck to arrive. As the familiar rumble of the vehicle approaches, her face lights up with excitement. The truck stops in front of her house, and Sophie waves enthusiastically at Tom, the garbage collector. Tom, a middle-aged man with a kind face, returns her greeting with a friendly wave and a warm smile. Excited to see her friend, Sophie rushes outside, carefully holding a homemade cupcake. She's decorated it herself, with a message written in icing that reads, "You're the best." Tom's eyes crinkle with joy as he accepts the thoughtful gift. He thanks Sophie, showing genuine appreciation for her kindness. Their interaction is filled with warmth and mutual respect, despite the significant age difference. Mike, Sophie's father, observes this exchange from the porch. Initially, he smiles at his daughter's friendly nature. However, as he watches the scene unfold, a flicker of concern crosses his face. He notices Sophie's deep admiration for Tom and begins to worry about the intensity of her attachment to the garbage collector. Mike's protective instincts kick in, and he makes a mental note to keep a closer eye on this unusual friendship. Later that day, Mike attempts to discuss Sophie's friendship with Tom. He approaches the subject casually during dinner, asking Sophie about her day and her interaction with the garbage collector. Sophie, however, is eager to share and talks animatedly about Tom's kindness. She recounts how Tom always has a smile for everyone and mentions his helpfulness, particularly towards Mrs. Johnson, an elderly neighbor. Mike listens attentively, torn between admiration for his daughter's compassion and lingering concern about her attachment to Tom. He decides to gather more information and starts asking around the neighborhood about the garbage collector. Over the next few days, Mike speaks with various neighbors, inquiring about their experiences with Tom. To his surprise, the responses are overwhelmingly positive. Neighbors describe Tom as a valued member of the community, always ready to lend a helping hand. They share stories of his small acts of kindness, helping with heavy bins, remembering birthdays, and even assisting in community cleanup efforts. One evening, while taking out the trash, Mike witnesses Tom helping Mrs. Johnson carry her groceries from her car to her house. He watches as Tom patiently walks alongside the elderly woman, engaging her in friendly conversation. This interaction touches Mike, and he feels a mix of emotions: relief at seeing Tom's genuine kindness, but also a nagging sense of caution that he can't quite shake. The following Wednesday, Mike's curiosity gets the better of him. He decides to follow Tom on his garbage collection route, wanting to know more about the man's life outside of work. Mike takes the day off, telling his wife he has some errands to run. He keeps a discreet distance as he trails Tom's garbage truck through the neighborhood. As the day progresses, Mike observes Tom's interactions with various residents. He notices how Tom greets everyone with genuine warmth, often stopping to chat briefly or offer assistance. Mike is impressed by Tom's work ethic and the care he takes in his job, but he's still searching for something more substantial about the man's character. In the afternoon, Mike is surprised to see Tom's truck pull up to a local community center. Intrigued, he parks his car and cautiously approaches the building. Through a window, he spots Tom in a small classroom, surrounded by a group of children. Tom is reading aloud from a colorful storybook, his voice animated and engaging. The children listen with rapt attention, clearly enjoying the story. This scene triggers a flood of memories for Mike. He recalls his own childhood and the joy that reading brought him. He remembers the librarians and teachers who fostered his love for books and how those experiences shaped his life. As he watches Tom interact with the children, Mike feels a growing sense of respect for the garbage collector. He also experiences a twinge of guilt for his initial suspicions and a newfound desire to become more involved in his community. Inspired by what he's witnessed, Mike decides to approach Tom after the reading session at the community center. As the children file out of the room, Mike enters and introduces himself properly to Tom. Tom seems surprised but welcomes Mike warmly. Mike compliments Tom on his reading session and expresses his admiration for Tom's community involvement. He then suggests an idea that's been forming in his mind: organizing a community reading event in the local park. Tom's face lights up at the proposal, and he enthusiastically agrees to help plan and participate in the event. Over the next few weeks, Mike and Tom work together to organize the reading event. They meet regularly to discuss logistics, book selections, and ways to engage the community. Sophie, thrilled to see her father and Tom working together, eagerly joins in the preparations. She takes on the task of creating colorful posters to advertise the event and helps to spread the word among her schoolmates and their families. During one of their planning sessions, Sophie suggests adding a book swap to the event. She proposes that everyone bring a book they've enjoyed to exchange with others. Mike and Tom are impressed by her idea, recognizing its potential to foster a sense of community and encourage reading. They incorporate the book swap into their plans, adding another layer of excitement to the upcoming event. As the preparations progress, Mike finds himself genuinely enjoying Tom's company. He begins to understand why Sophie and the rest of the community hold Tom in such high regard. The event planning not only brings Mike and Tom closer, but also strengthens Mike's bond with Sophie as they work together on this community project. The day of the community reading event arrives, and the local park is bustling with activity. Families from all over Maple Grove gather, bringing blankets, chairs, and books. Mike surveys the scene with a sense of satisfaction, pleased to see the community coming together. Sophie is in her element, darting from group to group, distributing homemade cupcakes and encouraging everyone to participate in the book swap. She beams with pride as she watches Tom interact with the children, helping them choose books and engage in discussions about their favorite stories. As the event progresses, Mike observes the positive impact it's having on the community. Neighbors who rarely interacted before are now chatting animatedly about books. Children are sprawled on blankets, absorbed in new stories. The atmosphere is one of warmth and connection. Mike notices how naturally Tom fits into this setting. He watches as Tom moves from group to group, recommending books, listening intently to people's opinions, and sharing his own love for literature. It's clear that Tom has a gift for connecting with people of all ages. As the day wears on, Mike finds himself reflecting on the unexpected turn of events. What started as a concern about Sophie's friendship with Tom has evolved into a community-building experience. He feels a mix of emotions: pride in the event's success, gratitude for Tom's involvement, and a growing realization of the positive influence Tom has on Sophie and the community. However, as Mike watches Sophie's interactions with Tom throughout the day, he can't help but notice how their relationship seems to be deepening. While he's no longer suspicious of Tom's intentions, Mike wonders about the long-term impact of this friendship on his daughter's life. He ponders the role Tom is taking in Sophie's development and whether it's appropriate for her to be so attached to someone outside the family. As the event reaches its peak, Tom takes center stage for a special reading. He's chosen a book about friendship, and his animated storytelling captures the attention of both children and adults. Tom's voice rises and falls with the story's emotion, and his expressive gestures bring the characters to life. The audience is captivated, hanging on every word. When Tom finishes reading, there's a moment of contented silence before the crowd erupts into applause. The story has clearly resonated with many, and people begin to discuss the themes of friendship and community that Tom highlighted in his reading. During the Q&A session that follows, a young boy raises his hand and asks an unexpected question. "Mr. Tom, where did you learn to read so well? Were you always a garbage man?" The question creates a palpable tension in the air. Tom's cheerful expression falters for a moment, and Mike notices a flicker of something, pain, perhaps, in his eyes. Tom hesitates, clearly caught off guard by the inquiry into his past. After a brief pause, Tom composes himself and responds with a smile, though Mike notices it doesn't quite reach his eyes. "Well," Tom says, "everyone has a story, and mine is just one part of who I am. What's important is that we're all here today, sharing our love for books and building friendships." Tom's diplomatic answer seems to satisfy the curious child, and the event continues. But Mike can't shake the feeling that there's more to Tom's story than he's letting on. He realizes that despite the weeks of working together and the positive impact Tom has had on the community, there's still much he doesn't know about the man who's become such an important figure in his daughter's life. As the event winds down, Mike finds himself torn between his growing respect for Tom and a nagging curiosity about the garbage collector's mysterious past. He wonders if he should pursue this line of inquiry or respect Tom's privacy. The unanswered questions linger in Mike's mind. adding a layer of complexity to his evolving relationship with Tom. After the event concludes and most attendees have left, Mike seizes the opportunity to speak with Tom privately. They begin by discussing the success of the reading event, both pleased with the turnout and positive community response. As they talk, Mike carefully steers the conversation towards Tom's background. "Tom, I've got to say, your storytelling was impressive. Have you always had a knack for it?" Mike asks, trying to sound casual. Tom's smile falters slightly, but he maintains his composure. "I've always loved reading," he responds, his tone warm but guarded. "It's amazing how stories can bring people together, don't you think?" Mike nods, sensing Tom's reluctance to delve into his past. He considers pressing further but decides against it, respecting Tom's privacy. Instead, he shifts the conversation to the impact of their friendship on the community. Tom enthusiastically discusses the importance of connection and how small acts of kindness can transform neighborhoods. His eyes light up as he talks about the potential for more community events. Mike listens intently, impressed by Tom's passion but still aware of the unspoken history lurking beneath the surface. As they part ways, Mike feels a mix of admiration and frustration. He's come to genuinely like Tom and appreciates his positive influence on Sophie and the community. Yet, the unanswered questions about Tom's past nag at him. Walking home, Mike reflects on the day's events. He marvels at how Tom and Sophie's unlikely friendship has sparked positive change in Maple Grove. The reading event brought neighbors together, fostering a sense of community that had been lacking. However, Mike can't shake the feeling that there's more to Tom's story. He decides to give Tom time, hoping that as their friendship grows, Tom might feel comfortable revealing more about his background. For now, Mike chooses to focus on the positive impact Tom has had, while remaining vigilant as a parent. A few days after the successful reading event, Sophie brings a new friend home from school. The boy, named Ethan, was one of the children who attended the park gathering. Mike is pleased to see Sophie expanding her social circle and invites Ethan to stay for dinner. During the meal, the children excitedly discuss their favorite books from the event. Mike listens with interest, happy to see his daughter's enthusiasm for reading. As the conversation flows, Ethan suddenly mentions something that catches Mike's attention. "My mom said Mr. Tom has a sad story," Ethan says innocently. "She told me that's why he's so nice to everyone." Sophie looks confused, while Mike feels a jolt of concern. He gently probes for more information, but Ethan doesn't know any details. The comment, however, reignites Mike's curiosity about Tom's background. After the children finish dinner and go to play, Mike finds himself unable to shake his growing unease. He decides to do some online research about Tom, hoping to find information that might explain Ethan's cryptic comment. Later that night, after Sophie has gone to bed, Mike sits at his computer and begins his search. He starts by looking up Tom's full name, which he remembers from their event planning paperwork. At first, he finds nothing unusual, just a few social media profiles that haven't been updated in years. As he digs deeper, Mike stumbles upon a local news article from several years ago. The headline mentions a tragic accident, and as he begins to read, he realizes with a start that the Tom mentioned in the article is indeed their garbage collector. The article details a car accident that occurred 5 years ago, involving Tom and his wife. Mike's heart sinks as he reads about the devastating outcome. Tom's wife didn't survive the crash. As he continues reading, Mike learns that before the accident, Tom had been a well-respected high school English teacher in a neighboring town. The article describes how the tragedy led to Tom's withdrawal from his teaching career and his eventual move to Maple Grove. Mike leans back in his chair, overwhelmed by this newfound information. The pieces start to fall into place. Tom's love for reading, his way with children, and the underlying sadness that Mike had occasionally glimpsed. He now understands the source of Tom's deep empathy and his dedication to bringing joy to others. This discovery leaves Mike with mixed emotions. He feels a profound sadness for Tom's loss and admiration for his resilience. At the same time, he grapples with guilt for invading Tom's privacy and uncertainty about how to proceed with this knowledge. The next day, Mike struggles with the weight of his newfound knowledge about Tom's past. He debates whether to confront Tom or to keep this information to himself. After much internal conflict, Mike decides that honesty is the best approach. He arranges to meet Tom at a local coffee shop, away from curious ears. When Tom arrives, he immediately senses the seriousness in Mike's demeanor. Mike takes a deep breath and gently broaches the subject of Tom's past. "Tom, I need to be honest with you. I did some research and found out about the accident and your previous life as a teacher," Mike says, his voice filled with concern and empathy. Tom's face falls, a mix of pain and resignation crossing his features. After a moment of tense silence, he nods slowly. "I suppose it was only a matter of time before someone found out," he says quietly. Encouraged by Tom's openness, Mike listens as Tom finally shares his story. Tom speaks of his life as a teacher, his love for his wife, and the devastating accident that took her away. He explains how the grief and guilt overwhelmed him, leading to his decision to leave his old life behind. "I couldn't face my students or colleagues anymore," Tom confesses. "I felt like a failure. So I moved here and took the job as a garbage collector. It was a way to start over, to connect with people without the pressure of my past." Mike listens intently, feeling a newfound respect for Tom's resilience. Tom continues, explaining how interacting with the community, especially children like Sophie, helped him heal and rediscover his purpose. "Your daughter's friendship," Tom says with a smile. "It reminded me of the joy I used to feel as a teacher. It's been a blessing I never expected." Mike feels a wave of guilt for his initial suspicions. He apologizes for prying into Tom's past, but Tom waves it off, understanding Mike's protective instincts as a father. As their conversation continues, Mike realizes that Tom's past has shaped him into the compassionate, community-minded person he is today. Tom's decision to reinvent himself as a garbage collector wasn't about hiding, but about finding a way to connect with people genuinely and make a difference in their lives. The revelation strengthens the bond between Mike and Tom. Mike offers his support and friendship, promising to keep Tom's past private if that's what he prefers. Tom expresses gratitude for Mike's understanding and admits that sharing his story has lifted a weight off his shoulders. As they part ways, both men feel a sense of relief and a deeper mutual respect. Mike heads home, inspired by Tom's resilience and even more appreciative of the positive impact he's had on Sophie and the entire community. A few weeks after Mike's conversation with Tom, a heavy rainstorm hits Maple Grove. As evening falls, Sophie asks to play in the backyard, eager to splash in the puddles. Mike agrees, telling her to stay close to the house. However, when he goes to call her in for dinner 20 minutes later, Sophie is nowhere to be found. Panic sets in as Mike searches the yard and the immediate vicinity, calling Sophie's name. His wife joins the search, and they quickly decide to call for help. Mike's first instinct is to contact Tom, knowing his familiarity with the neighborhood. Tom arrives within minutes, concern etched on his face. He immediately takes charge, organizing a search party with neighbors who have come out to help. As they comb the streets, Mike is struck by how quickly the community has rallied together, a testament to the bonds that have been forming over the past months. After an hour of frantic searching, they receive a call from Mrs. Johnson, the elderly neighbor. Sophie is at her house, safe and sound. Relieved, Mike, Tom, and the others rush to Mrs. Johnson's home. They find Sophie helping Mrs. Johnson, who had fallen and couldn't get up. Sophie explains that she heard Mrs. Johnson calling for help and ran over without thinking. She had been so focused on aiding her neighbor that she forgot to tell anyone where she was going. As paramedics check on Mrs. Johnson, Tom pulls Mike aside. With a mix of pride and emotion, Tom reveals that Mrs. Johnson was one of his former students. He explains how he had helped her through a difficult time after her husband's death, which is why he always made an extra effort to assist her. This revelation adds another layer to Tom's story. Mike realizes that Tom's impact on the community goes far beyond his current role as a garbage collector. He has been quietly supporting and connecting with people all along, using his past experiences to help others in need. The incident becomes a turning point for the community. Sophie's bravery and Tom's leadership during the crisis bring everyone closer together. The neighbors organize a community watch program, with Tom playing a central role. As for Mike, his remaining doubts about Tom's influence on Sophie vanish. He sees how Tom's guidance has helped shape Sophie into a compassionate, courageous young girl. This secret from Tom's past turns out to be the very thing that makes him an invaluable member of their community, a person who, despite his own pain, chose to dedicate his life to helping others. In the end, the true twist in the story is not a dark secret, but the realization that Tom is a community hero who, in his quiet way, has been healing himself by healing others. His journey from tragedy to renewal has unknowingly inspired and united an entire neighborhood, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are found in the most ordinary places.